All right, guys, welcome to another episode of Better Body Radio. And today we have a guest episode. I am joined by Louis Padian. I hope I pronounced that name right. So let's give you a little bit of background on Louis. So having gained a MSc, I believe is Master of Sciences. I always forget because I did my degree such a long time ago as well, in nutrition. And he's as part of the registration as an associate registered nutritionist with the Association for Nutrition. Louis had huge success as a community and private adult weight management coach. Interesting thing, and this is something I've resonated with from my rugby background. He's also a former junior international for England and Irish rugby. Lewis played professional rugby for Worcester Warriors, which ignited his passion for strength training. Now, after chronic injuries brought his rugby career to an early retirement, Lou went on to work alongside industry-leading nutritionists, which I'm sure we all well know, Martin McDonald and Sarah Duffield at the now very infamous Mac Nutrition. Louis now works alongside Emilia Thompson, PhD, and Anna Monday as part of the Emilia Fitness team, helping out individuals improve not only their body composition, but to improve their general health and build a positive relationship with food in the process. Louis, welcome to Better Body Radio.
Thank you for that very generous introduction, Ross. Pleasure to be on. Obviously, we roundtabled a couple of weeks ago now, and I think we got on really well on that roundtable and had very similar views. I thought we bounced off each other really well, and then when you asked me to come on, it was like simple, of course, because I know this will offer hopefully a lot of value for a lot of people listening.
Definitely, and I think that's why I was so keen to bring you on, exactly for the reasons you said. I kind of felt like it's funny because you and Emilia and the team and what you guys do at Emilia Fitness, you really put the mindset and the relationship side and getting people to kind of lean into those feelings and aspects about themselves that a lot of coaches kind of don't really dare go near or touching. And it's something that my wife and I spent a lot of time in the early part of our career doing. But, a bit of an honesty call is that we kind of almost do that a bit intuitively as part of our coaching. But it kind of actually, when I came away from that talk, and I thought like Louis was very, very insightful during that talk. And I feel like, and this is the great thing about being in this industry for a long time, is areas where you've maybe not dived into the research as much, or you've not practiced or sharpened those skills now. It kind of made me go away and think, I actually need to go back into some of more of the behavioral aspects of my clients and give that a little bit more greater attention than I already do. So I think that's why these discussions and networking with other fitness professionals can be so powerful, because it can really shine the spotlight on, I could actually get better in that area because those guys are killing it as far as really getting into the mindset of their clients. So yeah, it was a no-brainer for me to bring you on as well, Louis. So let's dive into question number one. Tell us a bit more about the early part of your coaching career, before working with the likes of Mac Nutrition and now, of course, Emilia.
So to start, I think a lot of people in the fitness industry, or especially in nutrition, have probably had their own issues with nutrition growing up, and I was probably very much the same. That I was always the bigger lad, so a lot of my rugby sort of career, even before that, I was the overweight front row prop, and almost I love rugby for the aspect of like it's got a position for everybody, so everyone's sort of included and everyone plays to their strengths within the team, and everyone's a valuable part of the team, which I really enjoy. But then looking back now, there was probably a lot of weight talk when I was a child regarding my overall physique, and that I was probably very aware that I was overweight from quite a young age. And then when I moved into sort of junior rugby stuff, my body shape changed a lot throughout those years, probably through restriction. There wasn't the guidance really within those arenas at the time, which is something that I probably want to delve into in the next couple of years, sort of get involved in talking about other aspects within nutrition at a performance nutrition level, just because it's an area of curiosity for me, looking at the areas of sport, especially at those young impressionable ages, that we do. A lot of people talk about nutrition and health, fitness from a very uneducated background in regards to the words that they use in the language. And this is something that, again, working with Emilia, Martin, Sarah, language is very, very important, and being very particular with the wording and the phrasing that you use. And I've definitely found that I've got a lot better than that over the last year or two. And then junior international, I think it was England 16s, England 18s, and Ireland under 19s. And then from that, I got a contract out of school to play at Worcester Warriors, where I was there for 2 years. And one of the nutritionists, I always remember talking about one of the nutritionists I had, who was he was the nutritionist on The Biggest Loser in the UK, the first series, I think. Doctor. He was a doctor. I don't think he had a doctorate in nutrition, but he was. I can't remember. I don't want to slate his name, but he is very low carb focused, and I wasn't very clear on my nutrition at the time. And as a front row prop playing at like professional level, he was trying to get me down to a very, very lean physique. And I was like, I'm playing against men. I can't really afford to be like 12% body fat, 10% body fat at 18 years old when playing against 30-year-old men who you haven't developed that strength, and that weight does help. So that, again, sort of twisted my relationship with food, got exposed to another very famous low-carb nutritionist along the line as well. And when I spoke to Mike and Sarah about this, they were like, you're lucky to be turned out all right, to be fair, with all the experience you've had. But yeah, that sort of rugby opened a lot of doors for me when I was a kid, and I sort of fell into my degree a bit at Loughborough, which was sports science. After a few injuries, was sort of not quite happy. I had 3 or 4 seasons back to back where for half, 2/3 of the season I was out injured and I couldn't play. And after a while I was just sick of being in the physio room. And during the time of my injuries, especially at uni, sort of threw myself into my degree a little bit, had all this sort of exposure to strength conditioning, nutrition, exercise performance stuff when I was a rugby player, and just sort of really engaged in that. And at the time I was living with some other lads, and I'd sort of dropped. I'd gone to play in the men's leagues rugby. I didn't play university rugby after my first year, and sort of gone to play down in National 2 rugby, and was sort of coaching some of my mates at the time, potentially, when I was at the gym, because I sort of had an idea about gym programming from my rugby days and from my degree. So that was probably my first ever time of coaching people, like seriously. So they'd come to the gym with me and I'd set the programming and we'd sort of do stuff like that. And then after my degree, didn't know what to do. Thought had an inkling it would be nutrition, but I was like, I don't know if I want to go straight into a master's. So did my PT qualification, started working in a gym, and found that because I was still playing like a lower level of rugby, I wasn't the usual physique of a PT at the time. But people found me very approachable because of that. So I was probably, considering the time I've been there, one of the more successful PTs there, just because I had good rapport with people and good work with people, and people didn't look at me and going, he's a bit much. They were like, oh, he's just like me. And I could empathize with people and understand their lifestyles a bit more rather than living in the gym. Still didn't really have a huge amount of knowledge around nutrition. Got exposed to Martin at that point probably, and started following Martin, started reading a lot more on sort of the evidence-based practice around nutrition. Applied for a master's up at Leeds Beckett in nutrition in practice, and did that part-time while I was working at Holland & Barrett in the UK as an assistant manager at a store. So that again actually was a really good coaching experience for me, because we had probably one of the best retention rates for customers, but one of the poorest rates for sales, because people would come in and they'd be like, they'd ask me about products, like, you don't need that. And I'd basically give them a consultation on nutrition and send them away. A lot of the time it would be, there's actually, like, if you're looking, it's about energy balance, and sort of educate them on that. I was like, some of the stuff might help, like having whey protein and things like that, but let's try and get a higher protein intake. So we ended up just doing consultations on a Barrett's floor for the best part of 9-10 months while I was working there, assistant manager. And yeah, I left there, went back into personal training, then ended up working with the council as well as an adult weight management coach there. So really enjoyed working along with the team and sort of developing people as part of some of the most deprived areas in the UK as part of the programme. Saw a lot of the flaws within the programme as well, though, because that was sort of my area of focus for my master's eventually, that I really enjoyed it. A lot of it was taught by dietitians, a lot of clinical practice, had some really engaging lecturers on sort of the gender dynamics and things like that within weight management programs, which I found really fascinating at the time and still do. But looking at maybe the social dynamics and sociology of weight management was my area of focus. So for my master's, my dissertation was based on sustainable weight management programs over long term, so looking past 12 months in the UK, so comparing clinically based versus public or like privately focused, so looking at Weight Watchers versus NHS programming for weight management programs. What are the similarities and differences? What's more effective? And sort of after being on my own journey for a couple of years, so at my heaviest I was probably 20 stone I hit, and then I got down, I sort of went on my own sort of weight loss journey alongside learning more about nutrition, and sort of fueled my love for weight management programs and looking at how to get people to manage their weight more effectively from a physiological point of view. And then after that, sort of from that, it was probably a couple of months after, I interviewed to work at Matt Nutrition.
Cool. So that was a pretty, I thought it was a great start. And I actually had just a bit of a question, it's a bit more of an introspective one potentially from, just taking this right back to the start when you talked about the, obviously playing as a prop forward. And I thought it was always quite an interesting connection, because I often find that, certainly from my time when I played rugby as well, was that a lot of prop forwards fall into playing prop because there's like this kind of identity with, well, I'm X weight or I'm overweight, so therefore I fit into this position. How did you find you kind of battled that? And I guess now with the professionalism of rugby, you've obviously got a lot of prop forwards that are very athletic, but generally speaking are of a certain structure or build. How do you think, I suppose the example of some of the really top athletes in rugby being prop forwards and front rows, how do you think they're going to go about making the transition of getting people away from just identifying as that position because of someone's weight? Do you find that to be quite a big potential issue in the sport?
I feel like I was probably part of one of the younger generations at the time that was influenced by that sort of, so like idols growing up for me, a lot of people, it's probably go over the head, but it's probably like Siani Tonga and Brian Mujati at the Northampton Saints at the time, who were sensational in Europe. But I was lucky enough as well, as when I was at school, I went to Bromsgrove School for sixth form, as I was sort of offered a scholarship after playing England 16s there. And my head coach was Paul Mullen, who was one of the coaches for the England under 18s AER squad. So that he was one of the coaches that I played under for England. But his son's Matt Mullen, who played for Worcester in England as well. So Matt would come down and sort of mentor me maybe a couple of times a month. On a Monday night, we'd do scrummaging sessions, and he was a phenomenal athlete. So there's a really famous video of him chasing down James Hook, and James Hook probably had about 20, 30 meters on him, and he caught him down before the corner flag, and everyone was like, where's that come from? But he was an absolute animal. When I was younger, though, I was probably, you do. I think it is that thing that the older, it's tradition probably from an older age group. So all of our coaches when we were younger would have been ex-rugby players at some point, and they would have seen the big boys go in the front row and the quick nippy guys go out in the wing. And then as I was probably about, it must have been 14, 15, that's sort of where the conversations around like what sports are you going to pursue rugby kind of thing happens. And I was playing back row for my club at the weekend, so I was playing 6 or 7, so I was quite mobile. And then I was sort of trialing for county Midlands in the front row, so I was always a front rower. But then as I got fitter and sort of started to take it a bit more seriously, and I had good handling skills and good footwork, I could play in the back row a bit. So and then actually when I was coming back from injury at uni, because of my pec injury, I wasn't too sure whether I could scrummage properly with it, because I was a loose head prop and it was my right shoulder, so it was my only scrummaging shoulder. And we did some contact work, and I was like, I'm not sure how the binding's going to work. So actually, when I came back, I ended up playing for the second team, won the cup finals at uni in the back row. Came back and did that, and like I think I played Nat 1 as well. I played a few games back row for Nat 1 as well. I think props have changed massively in the game, and through that, I feel that we might be losing a lovely part of the game where it's an inclusive sport. It's for all shapes and sizes. But I think that's just the way of modern sport, that everyone's getting bigger, leaner, faster, stronger, more mobile, and it's sort of merging towards maybe a rugby league aspect as well, where people just looking for those bigger collisions of more athletic players. And you've got I think that they might be reflecting on the rolling bench at the moment, or being able to take subs on and off because you've got players that are built for 60 minutes. That's it. And then from that point, they just bring on someone else, especially in the front row. The front row will rarely play a full game now. So it is interesting, and I think I was lucky enough to be part of that generation where I sort of changed. I feel that changing to more of that professional era as like a young lad as well. So people were potentially taking it more seriously, becoming more mobile, becoming fitter through those periods when actually it was stepping away from maybe the core values of the game of having that sort of inclusivity and that aspect. So maybe it sort of diverged a little bit to, if people want to take it seriously, then it's not really a game for all shapes and sizes anymore. But if people want to play socially, then actually it still is, because that the front row, there's a lot. I've played with a lot of talented players in the front row who potentially don't look the best in their shape or the most fit, but actually they're phenomenal athlete and very good at the sport. So yeah, it is an interesting discussion, and looking at the dynamics of it all as well. Like you see, professional sport getting people to be leaner isn't necessarily better, because if we're looking at the consistent performance of athletes, actually getting someone just to feel better, be able to recover properly and perform more sustainably throughout the season and longevity of a player, rather than let's get them really lean and really athletic, when actually it's a collision sport. You can't take those hits when you're so lean. You need to be able to have that cushioning around your joints and around your body to take that hammering every week. Like some weeks I'd wake up on a Sunday morning, I couldn't move my neck or my shoulders. I wouldn't be able to do that for a few days, and then before you know it, it's sort of like Tuesday night training where you're doing full contact again, and it's sort of rolling through the week. So yeah, it's an interesting topic. Sorry, I've rambled on a bit there about rugby.
No, it's just, I mean, obviously my background in sport was rugby. So well, it was actually golf before that, and then from golf to rugby, bit of a transition. But yeah, it's just, I always found that interesting because I played outside centre, I played scrum half, I played wing. I played mostly out with the fast guys. And whereas my brother Greg, he was pretty much the same build as me, maybe a tiny bit smaller, but literally by a kilo or two. But he played front row and back row. And even though we were built we're triplets, so we're literally the almost identical clones of each other, but just from a skill set point of view, he just gravitated into one position, I gravitated to another. But I would say neither of us ever really struggled with our weight, so it's never something we ever had to address as individuals. But we certainly played around guys who, as part of some of the social poking and fun, there was a lot of maybe taunting towards weight and appearance. And I just wondered if that was something that you'd came across.
And I think at the elite level as well, my exposure to it, we used to have, it was called Fat Club, and the front row, we'd have extra sessions. And looking back at it now, it's like that's horrific. But if your skin faltered too high, they'd have separate skill sessions where you'd be assigned to either Fat Club, back row, probably do some breakdown work, second rows might do some line out work, and then speedsters would do lots of speed work, but the front row would be sat on the bikes at 67, or might be doing a conditioning session to get fitter. And it's weird how different S&T coaches probably influenced you at the time, even though they've got pressure coming down from above the first team coaches. When I started, it was about power. So I had my first S&T coach, Boz, was all about Olympic lifting and trying to get us more proficient at that. Cleves was all about fitness, and he was always saying, like, at your age, you're rarely going to be stronger than these men, but what we can do is get you fitter. And I was as fit as anything. Like, I was a full-time trainer for my first 6 months of rugby. If I didn't really play any rugby, I just trained every day, and got down to like 90 mils across all sides of my body and the skin folds. I was in really good. And considering I turned up at 118 kilos at 18 years old, by the end of pre-season I was 100 kilos. I just dropped all of that within 8 weeks. But then my last coach was about hypertrophy, which I enjoyed, and he probably had the right idea for us playing men's rugby of being as durable and as big as possible and as strong as possible in that aspect. So yeah, it's interesting, and sort of those influences, looking back on them and reflecting on those. As coaches, I think we reflect on things quite a lot. We're quite introspective and looking back on like what we've done. And I think looking back on that part of my life, it shaped a lot of my beliefs, But looking back, I was like, well, considering it was a professional environment, there was a lot of things that I'd say that weren't very well done or professional about it.
Interesting, interesting. So let's move on to another very interesting question. So as far as your approach, how has that changed with the experience gained from working alongside the likes of Mark McDonald and the team at Mac Nutrition, and of course now with Emilia?
It's massive. I think when I went to Mac Nutrition, there was lots of talks around weight management programs and things like that further down the line, which I still think are in the pipeline. But I learned a huge amount just from, I always say to like Charlotte or people I worked with, I was like, Mac Nutrition taught me a lot about nutrition, but actually taught me a lot more about sort of life skills and professionalism, and just got me to understand me a bit more and what I need to be the best version of me in a professional environment. Just being around some of the discussions we had, some of the experience Martin, Sarah had, and Billy was invaluable. Just being around those minds all day and sort of asking them questions. So one of the things that we would do is make responses for the lab. And the way that systems work in Mac Nutrition is everything gets checked or double checked. So you write something and somebody else will read over it before it's posted, before it's sent. So that thoroughness of work actually gets you to have these conversations around, oh, why have you phrased it like this? But then also as well around discussions just with Martin and being exposed to that level of, instead of, he's very good at personal development. So if you go to him and say, this is wrong, he'd say, so what are the solutions? Rather than you presenting problems all the time, it's like, actually, here's the problem, but I've got these solutions. And those would be the sort of things that he'd prefer and sort of push you towards, which is really, really good. Obviously learned a lot through helping other practitioners get a lot better. But towards the end, even though I enjoyed working there, I really craved working with clients again. And I think I looked back and sort of had those sort of reflective periods, and it's like, the reason I got into nutrition was to help people personally. And that potentially sounds a little bit selfish, but I do it to make me feel good, because that's what I enjoyed, helping people one-on-one, seeing those journeys of potential people getting that confidence and building that better relationship with food or reaching those physique goals that they wanted. And I just wasn't getting that amount of nutrition, unfortunately. And so I sat down with Martin, this was within a couple of months before I left, and had a real sort of honest conversation. So I'm probably going to be leaving the next few months. And they were really, really supportive and amazing at facilitating that. And it was sort of, that's what I liked about the environment there, is that I felt comfortable enough to go to him and Sarah and have those honest conversations around it, and sort of we could do this so that everyone sort of won from the situation. And then I was lucky enough it was probably just before I started, or around the time I started Mac Nutrition, I got exposed to Emilia. And really her message obviously is a lot, I think it's become a lot more mainstream now, but at the time it was probably a lot more left field, considering her background is as a physiology lecturer. And for her to be speaking around feelings, emotions, and for her background being competing as well, talking around like having unconditional permission to eat, I think it, in the fitness industry at the time, was probably a bit different, but was what was needed. And a lot of it resonated with me massively. So when I sat down with Emilia, and with my background in weight management programs, where I was probably focused on healthy BMI ranges and achieving those significant weight management, so that 5% clinical significance, blending that into, actually, I usually found that when I was working with people, I just had really good people skills that I'd sort of worked on in conversation and sort of helped people share problem solving and things like that, and working as a team. So it actually really suited me, that sort of potentially, instead of just looking at the crude numbers of weight management, let's have a look at it from a more compassionate and empathetic point of view. And that's not the most important thing. So when me and Emilia had a chat, it just worked really well. I was like, I want to create a really positive community and really supportive community. She was all on board with that. And yeah, she sort of really, really supported me in my entrusting my message and my beliefs. And I think a lot of what we stand for as a team is like good values within, and being like, believing that we're good people in a way that we trust each other, and like we can have really open conversations, and it's non-judgmental environment, and we really support each other. So it's just been fantastic working with Emilia and Anna as well. I've learned a huge amount working with people's relationships with food, and I feel that it's become fashionable to talk about it, but it's also, which is a double-edged sword, that people are probably talking about it who don't really understand what it means, and often put out conflicting messages around unconditional permission to eat food, but then have food rules and on the next post, which really, really infuriates me. But then actually it's sort of a lot of people have started talking about it, and it's become more aware and more prioritized to people, rather than focusing on weight loss goals. It's actually, let's look at all the aspects of your lifestyle, and like how you talk to yourself, how you see food, how you handle relationships with others. All of these are really important in regards to actual nutrition as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one of the things that kind of really struck me is I was kind of going back through some of the CoFit recordings and kind of clipping down some of the stuff for use on social media. I remember I kind of recorded the answer I had to the first question, and obviously your answer that immediately followed up to that. And this is the kind of way that I kind of reflect on it, is the answer to the question. I gave a very mechanistic viewpoint on it. It was very much a case of lack of clarity of vision and different phases and having structure, and the reality is and exactly what you then alluded on to straight after my answer was that, well, the higher level stuff's all fine and well, but if you actually don't address the really kind of deeper rooted stuff, then you can have as great a mechanism in place as you want, as many great strategies in place you want, but if you don't actually address what's going on in between your 2 years, then no great system will work. You've got to really address the mindset first. And I think seeing that and then hearing that straight after mine, I thought, you know what, getting that type of messaging much more clearly across to our clients, we need to get better at that. So I thought that was very cool, and I think that's very evident in how you guys work at Emilia Fitness. And of course, she's known for being her and being very, a bit different. And like you say, I agree. I think it came at a time where the fitness industry probably needed to hear something a bit different, a different perspective, which is a great segue actually to our next question. So obviously, you guys are hugely respected and well known for this kind of compassionate approach and helping your clients to improve their relationship with food. So I guess this might be a bit of a controversial question. Where do you feel the fitness industry is falling short in terms of that kind of bigger picture of nutrition?
I think I posted something a while ago, and it was like a bit tongue in cheek, but I felt like this is what I believed in, and it's like the first rule of being an online coach, and it's like not talking about online coaching as in like the Fight Club. But it was actually giving a shit about your clients, and like as people, and understanding and having that sort of standpoint of wanting the best for them, and that might not be, and that could be not working with you is one of the best things for them, and sort of referring them on or potentially telling them that we won't fulfill that service. And I think we hugely stand by that of doing the best by people. There's lots of different coaches out there that fulfill lots of different needs. We fulfill a place in the market where it's people want that care and need it when on their journey, that they need someone to potentially offload and unload onto. But there are coaches out there who are very sort of numbers based and be like, right, here's your macros, here's your list for this week, and this is the numbers that you've got to hit. That's perfectly fine. And like I'm not saying they're bad coaches. They're probably very good at the things that they do and a lot better than me. And it's understanding where we fit. I feel that there's a lot of mixed messages within the industry at the moment, and people aren't very consistent because things are on trend. So there's people talking about self-compassion and mindfulness around food, but then displaying sort of binging tendencies or having certain food rules around certain foods. And the language, again, like I'm very particular. So it's when people said, like some of my clients might say, well, it was X event, so I had to have this. It's like, but did you have to? You've always got a choice, and informing them that there's always a choice to be made, and you've got full autonomy, and not saying that in a judgmental sense, but saying it like, so let's address these words that you're telling yourself, because this is you form your own narrative on that front, that you're telling yourself your own these stories. Like if you say I had to have it, then in your mind you probably thought, well, I've got to have it. rather than going, well, I've got a choice here. So what's the best choice that sits in line with my goals and values? And I think that's the problem with the industry at the moment. I think a lot of people haven't assessed what they want to stand for, and almost there's loads of things wrong with the industry. I could have a massive list, but that people trying to be a jack of all trades and like trying to be a master of all trades instead of actually just focusing on the one thing. Like if you're looking for a bodybuilding coach who wants to focus on exercise mechanics, I'm probably not that guy. Like I can do it, but I'm not the best at it, and I'd happily say that. But if you want somebody who you can talk to about relationships with food and actually unpick the reasons that you're tending to overeat or that you place so much value on your weight currently, then we're probably the right people that you want to work with. We do work with, so I know Emilia works with some elite athletes and things like that on their relationship with food. I work with girls who have like previously competed, a lot of people who are in the nutrition sphere who are nutrition coaches themselves or psychologists, and they come to us because they, as much as they help other people with their relationship with food, they struggle to put it on themselves. And I think when they come to us, they understand that we're not here to judge, we're here to help. So let's try and work together. And it is a collaborative relationship. It isn't me just telling you what to do. It's actually getting me to probably get you to look introspectively and reflect on certain events that if you go, oh, I emotionally ate the other night, it's like, so that's perfectly fine. Forgive yourself. Like that's we are human after all, having that common humanity. What do you think triggered that emotional eating episode? And then looking back on it, how might you like resolve that more efficiently? And not saying like being perfect. I'm not saying so what's the perfect response. I'm going, even if it's just 1%, how could we make this 1% better next time round? And yeah, there's so many different facets to it. I think with everything going on at the moment, the fitness industry is going to be very dynamically changing over the next couple of months. That's going to be a lot of change, especially with people's working conditions changing in the fitness industry, like delivery of sessions and things like that changing massively. But I think people need to reflect on what they want to stand for and what their values are, and then deliver a service in line with that, instead of trying to take on clients from all aspects. Like when you first work with clients as a PT, everything's like, I've never done this before, but you get better at it.
Yep.
And instead of saying that you're a physique coach because you've competed yourself, actually, no, let's just work with a few physique clients first and then actually build that, learn how to do it properly and sort of bounce ideas off of the coaches as well. I think a lot of coaches are afraid to ask other coaches for advice because they want to be seen as all-knowing. I bounce ideas off other coaches all the time, and they do the same to me. And it's sort of having those that is a positive sounding board, the one that that's got a good eye on these things, and going, am I okay to do this? Like, is this I'm confused about this for the client. I'm thinking this, is that the right thing? So knowing that you're never going to be done, you're never going to know everything. You're always going to be developing and learning, but actually going about it in the right way. I don't know if that's answers your question. I go off on all these tangents all the time, but yeah, there's a lot of things to pick up really, but it's just people standing by their values. And like I struggled with my weight for years, and I'm quite open and honest about that online, and I think people appreciate that a lot more, rather than me potentially just posting up about you need to make a calorie deficit. We all know that you need to make a calorie deficit, but what is a calorie deficit? A lot of people don't know that, and it just falls on deaf ears. So yeah, I feel like I'm just rambling at the moment, Rob.
Well, to be honest, this is one of the great positives about me interviewing other guests is to save me from what I normally do, which is all the rambling and going on tangents. Yeah. I let other people do that instead, and it's much more entertaining. But there was a couple of things I resonated with in that kind of answer there, and I guess one of them is just kind of like getting very, very clear on your own values. And I think it's okay as a coach to take the time to figure out what it is you want to specialize in. I think a lot of coaches feel pressured sometimes, and I feel like that's an issue in the industry as well. There's kind of like the herd or the sheep mentality where, oh, well, my favorite coaches do this, so I feel like I need to do that. And interestingly enough, I've always had a bit of a conflict with that because if I had to describe myself for, I'd probably say the first 7 out of 10 years of my career, I was a bit of a generalist. I don't know if I'd necessarily say jack of all trades. I wasn't interested in everything, but, you know, I did dabble in, you know, I played rugby was my background. Then I went into competitive CrossFit for a while. Then I moved into weightlifting. Then I moved into physique stuff, was what I'm kind of doing now. And hence why I've hired a guy who's a specialist in that, because there's no point in me trying to do it myself. I'd rather hire someone who is, you know, so Callum Rystrick, the Muscle Mentor, is one of the best coaches you can hire for that. So I'm like, well, I'm going to speak to someone who is so far beyond where I am now so that I can, one, be mentored and learn, and two, I know that I'm going to receive an incredible service for that. And like you said, it takes enough to put your own ego at the door, because like if I had to look at the numbers, it's like I've been in the industry twice as long as Cal has. That doesn't stand for anything. He's got that richness of experience and that knowledge to impart. So it doesn't matter where someone, what age someone is, what they come from. It's kind of like, oh, have they got the skills and have they got the persona that fits with me as an individual, that I feel like I can gain something valuable out of this. So I think that's important. And then I guess the second thing, back to your thing about language, a phrase I often use with my clients, often just to remind them of the dialogue that they use, not only with others, but with themselves, is some of the most dangerous stories we can tell ourselves are the ones we convince ourselves to be true, despite there being evidence to suggest otherwise. And so it's this idea that we're very good as human beings because of that reptilian brain and this need of feeling comfort and safe, that we can almost convince ourselves of things that they're just not even remotely true, but we tell ourselves them so often that it becomes the truth, even when it's just really not. And so I think that's huge. And so that actually then segues us very, very nicely onto the next question, which is dialogue. You mentioned it earlier, and that's why I was nodding my head last when we were talking about how people speak, and it's how language is very important. And you know, I remember I was working in a place not too long ago, and one of the guys said, "Oh, that's just semantics," and I had to kind of pull him, and I said, "Well, hold on a minute." I was like, "Do you think that semantics are not important, especially in the industry with what we do and how careful you have to be with your wording?" You know, this guy's been in the industry for years, and he was just kind of like, "Oh," he's like, "Do you know what? Actually, you're right. I never thought of that." And there was this article I'd read not too long before about that phrase and unpacking what it means when people say, "Oh, that's just semantics." And like you said, because wording is so important, it's something as a team that we're very, very careful with, and we've talked a lot about as far as, right, in terms of our onboarding process, in terms of our check-ins, being very careful about how are you delivering that message, because you could deliver the exact same message and it can either be empowering or disempowering depending on how you go about it. So on to that end, I know that you are huge on language, and so what methods would you say you use with your clients to kind of help increase that level of self-compassion and also communicate more kindly with themselves and others?
It's difficult at times, because I think some of the clients that we work with are the champions beating themselves up at times, that they are so hard on themselves. And it's another thing I'd sort of like push on is that, like, a lot of the clients we work with, there is a lot of emotional load that works with it that can make it really, really like tough at times, but I thoroughly enjoy it. But other coaches might not enjoy that aspect. And I think if you start unpacking this box of worms potentially with clients, that you have to be prepared to deal with it. That if you can't unload sort of like potential identities that people have within their behaviors, that, and then just be like, oh, so let's just go back to your macros, because then you just leave them asking more questions than answers at the moment. But we have a lot of tasks that we do with clients in regards to building that compassion element. And I think that initially it's probably putting them up on those sort of things, in like potentially like the wording, and almost like using the words that they use potentially in their check-ins, and mirroring in that aspect of like, you've said this, what do you mean by that, and getting them to clarify. I think Ursula Philpott, who's one of the dietitians who does modules on MAP Nutrition Uni, she's one of my lecturers at uni as well, and she said, just always be curious, so always be intrigued by what, and get people to like, that's interesting, what do you mean by that? And I find that's probably one of the things that I most ask people in like in check-ins, that they'll have a check-in with me and it won't be a simple, right, read this is what you're doing. It'll be, right, I've read this, what do you mean by this? And I've noticed you started doing this week. What's led to this change, and what potentially has triggered this this event that's happened? And just being really curious at what people actually tell themselves, or potentially the reason behind their actions. And when you get people to do that, they start to unpick some of those stories that they tell themselves, that they start to realize that potentially they're causing or almost that self-sabotaging at points where they tell themselves these stories and then have to do certain actions to retain that identity. That I'm always an emotional eater. Okay, so let's unpick that. Let's have a look at, when did you emotionally, like, when did this start potentially, or what happened the last time? Oh, I was angry. Okay, so were you able to recognize that at the time? Yes, I was. Okay, so if you're able to recognize it, then we can actually look at other avenues to resolve that anger or resolve that stress that you're under at the time, and almost creating a new decision tree for them. A lot of the stuff we do is around self-care and prioritizing themselves a little bit. I think a lot of people we work with tend to care for others, but then put themselves last.
Yeah.
And they're, like, again, they're always worrying about other people and what they're doing. So it's really important for them to almost prioritize, like serving from an empty cup, as we'd say, is like serving from a full cup each morning. So I've just implemented, one of my clients say, a few weeks ago we spoke about it, about putting a self-care routine in, and she decided to put it first thing in the morning. The first hour of the day is hers, for her. She's got 2 or 3 young kids, she's got a husband, she does all the cooking, and she said that she's able to, from that hour, she's noticed that she's able to deal with relationships throughout the day a lot better, and also she's less stressed around food. Her anxiety around food has dropped. And that's just one small thing, where she's got up in the morning, she's thought about her day over a coffee, she potentially meditated for 10-15 minutes. She might have got outside and got some sunshine, got some fresh air. And these are all small things that I think a lot of the time people think about, what's the one big thing I can do to change everything, when actually it's lots of little things that make a big difference over time. So if we potentially, things that we look at, like you said about self-compassion, one of the key questions that I ask people around self-compassion is like, the words that you've used there, would you say that to a good friend? And a lot of the time it's, no, I wouldn't. So why are you saying it to yourself then? Why are you being more horrible to yourself than you would to anybody else? Like, you can't, and the phrase is, you can't pick yourself up if you're busy beating yourself down. And I think that's really, really important for people to remember, that like the world and in general is like pretty tough, and the last thing we need is you beating yourself up about things. Raising mindfulness, or that mindful awareness of everything really. So just asking people to be more mindful on a general basis. So once we put in those reflective practices, or around meals, we get and start practicing mindful meals, having mindful experiences, meditating, concentrating on breathing. All these little things, they only take a couple of minutes each day, but actually impact other areas of your life as well, with regards to managing your emotions and feeling your feelings. Even being able to identify what you're feeling can help you with emotional triggers and emotional reactions to things. So being able to go, actually, I'm just a bit tired today. Why am I tired? What's caused that? What have I done differently today compared to other days? Oh, potentially I didn't sleep very well. Okay, and once you've got that reason, you're less likely to lash out at people if you're a bit cranky and if you're a bit grumpy because you haven't slept. Gratitude, I found really, really empowering for people, is another thing that we do, is getting people to find positives in each day. One thing that we ask our clients a lot of the time is, what are you most proud of this week? And initially, like new clients potentially will, if they're not in a great headspace when they're filling out the check-in form, they'll just go, nothing. And immediately I'll message them back and going, okay, that's not good enough for me. That means that you've filled this in a bad headspace. You can always find one positive, even if that is, I managed to get out of bed this morning after a really, really terrible week. That's something to be positive of and be proud of. So I always get them to reflect on, if they do that, I'll be like, you owe me 3 things this week. You have to find 3 things that happened this week. And they will, I've noticed that a lot of clients that start to practice gratitude daily, again, another small task, takes a minute or two, just say, what am I thankful for today? Can massively see and change how you perceive the world and perceive things around you, of going potentially positives. And again, that linking back to mindfulness and having that non-judgmental approach actually leaks out into your other relationships as well. So when somebody does something that potentially would annoy you, if you step back non-judgmentally and going, so why have they done that? Instead of going, they've done that to annoy me, it's going, actually, these are the reasons that are more likely. Like you said, all these stories that we tell us that we immediately jump to, this is a personal attack on me. Instead going, actually, the reason that they've done that is because they're short on time. So a good example was, I received a message, somebody messaged me on Instagram, hadn't spoken to them before. I'm sorry, have you got any more information on this? And the link was in my bio, but I gave them a really detailed response that I spent ages on, and I just got a message back saying thanks. But like that, initially I was like, thanks, but then I took a step back and was going, well, they probably just said thanks because they're in a bit of a rush. Like that could be the reason. And instead of me going, you're welcome, it's just me going, okay, so at least they've said thank you. Like they could have just ignored it.
Yeah.
So actually that's the positive, that they could come back in a couple of weeks' time, a couple of months' time, just going, oh, actually, I'm ready to implement this now. I really want to do this with you. And then the last thing we'd sort of do is work on it's more like a holistic approach. So I think we spoke about those setting goals in other aspects of your life as well. I think that's really important. As well, I'm a nutritionist, and that's probably the area that I'm most sort of well read in. A lot of the things that we do is around health behaviors. So I would often set a task for a lot of my clients who at the first time is set a goal planner, and it's sort of like a SWOT analysis, but for goals throughout the year. So potentially I'm going to look at obstacles, what you want to achieve, where you are now, obstacles, and then what we can do to overcome those obstacles. But in regards, instead of it just being around, so what's your physique goals this year? It's actually, so what is your work goals this year? What are your relationship goals this year? What are your sexual partner goals this year? And it's not for them to feed back to me, but it's for them to potentially look at other aspects of life, because if you focus all your energy onto your physique goals, you're going to impact negatively potentially on other areas of your life. So actually, when we get people to realize that there's actually more to life than just physique or their training or their diet, then actually we can help them get to the lifestyle that they want. Not necessarily, I think a lot of people start with a coach and they have this one goal in mind and they think, I know the solution, I'm going to lose weight and I'll get to that goal. When actually, when they want to get to that goal, they realize that weight loss isn't the issue. Actually, sometimes it is the way that they talk to themselves. Sometimes it's their relationship with food. Sometimes weight loss could happen, but it could just be increasing their activity and getting fit enough to be able to play with their kids and things like that. Mm-hmm. And when we reflect on all those aspects of life, I think it's really important to assess your goals. So we spoke about values before as well, and a lot of it does come down to values, goals, and the lifestyle you want to lead. And it's making sure all those align. So that's the one thing that I'd always say to repeat a lot to my clients is, what are your goals, what are your values, and where do you want to, and getting your lifestyle to sort of align with those two. I think that's really important, rather than getting your lifestyle just to fit your goals, but it's totally against the values and the things that you want in life. You're probably not going to get the lifestyle that you actually want. But actually, if we look at your lifestyle at the moment and change that towards what you value and what your goals are in life, then you're probably going to end up in a better place.
Awesome. I think that question, there's so many great sound bites that I think the listeners can probably take away from that and really have a deeper think about. One of the things that kind of really got to me there was because I've had a past where I've studied like NLP, and I did an NLP course and all that sort of stuff. And people have their different opinions on NLP, and of course people can use it in a very deceitful way and stuff like that as well. But the number one thing it gave me as a coach was just the ability to observe language patterns. And I think the thing you said about earlier about when people say things like they maybe make like universal statements or complex equivalences or things like that, and it's people say, so like I always do like this, or I've always been. It's like, so without exception, you've always been like that. Are you really sure? And like you say, being able to ask better questions as a coach, I think is such a huge skill.
Yes.
And it's clear that you guys do that.
I think asking better questions is a really good phrase, actually. I think I can't remember where I've heard that before, but it's really relevant that you don't just come with solutions. Actually, there's a post I put up a while ago, and I think it was from a dietitian that I follow, and it's like, if I've done my job properly, you'll be listening to yourself more than you'll be listening to me. And I think that's what we need to aim for as coaches, to get people autonomous and almost coaching with them to get them to a place where they feel self-sufficient and be able to answer those questions, rather than just giving them the answers all the time. Because when you spoon feed people, they don't learn. They just come to you again looking for the next answer. When if you can get people to look, reflect, and automatically go, instead of having that knee-jerk reaction of I've always done this or I've always been that way, getting them to almost think about it and go, what, well, have I actually, is that a true statement? Okay, so what, when I wasn't like that, what was I doing? So I was doing X, Y, and Z. So that potentially set me up for the day, and that's the reason why I was the way I was. And looking at things like that, so getting people to reflect on, I always say to my clients about setting yourself up for success, or the best version of yourself. And if we can get that, then I think that's probably one of the best things that we can get for a client, is setting them up for success long term, and getting them the best version of themselves, so they can be the best version for other people as well. Because a lot of the time, it's not just about them; it's about the people that they're socializing with or spend the most time with, like their family.
Awesome, brilliant answer. So I'm going to read this statement. I took this directly off of one of your posts on social media because I really liked it, and it was, you don't have to climb a mountain to climb straight, or you don't climb a mountain to climb straight back down. You have to learn just to sit there for a while and enjoy the view, and that's so true. Is this idea of people wanting to exist on ends of the spectrum or on the extremes, rather than being happy and also kind of comfortable with all the stuff in the middle. So I guess what advice would you then give the listeners who, I suppose, struggle with feeling comfortable in either the current maintenance habits, or maybe they've kind of been battling with this journey of trying to work towards kind of laying down maintenance habits that they actually feel like they could comfortably live in and exist in?
I think it is difficult, and I think it's like almost like a phased approach. I had one of my clients today turn around to me, and she'd had this conversation with herself, and she'd only started with me a couple of weeks ago, and was a fat loss client, and was like, sweet, we can work with that. And then I think it was a second check-in, she was like, I'm not saying I'm tired of dieting or I don't want to have a deficit, but I'm not too sure whether I actually want this anymore, after we've worked on a lot more self-compassion and mindfulness. And actually, we were like, okay, so set on those thoughts for a week, and we can bring calories back up to a maintenance, and we can take calories totally off the table and just practice healthy behaviors. And then this week it was actually, I didn't actually want fat loss. I just want a better relationship with myself and to be around food. So we've removed those external cues straight away. So it's just like takeaway tracking. And for some people, that could be perfectly fine. Just like, okay, I won't track and delete the app. Other people, they've built up such a reliance on it, so they've potentially got such a big streak on MyFitnessPal that they are unwilling to sort of step away from it. And I think it's got to be, again, it's, as coaches, I think we've always got to look at the individual and do it on a case-by-case approach. But true maintenance, I think, is leading a lifestyle that you're truly happy, content with. So potentially, instead of looking at the weighing scales, using other measures of success. So like, what's your social life? I know at the moment we're in lockdown potentially, and that's not helping, but what do I want my social life to look like? What do I want my health behaviors or my leisure time to look like? What do I want my work relationship to look like? What do I want my relationship with food and relationship with others to look like? And work towards those goals. So you are still progressing, but actually not worrying about the weight, because we place so much value on this one number on the scale that can change from day to day, from hour to hour. And actually, a lot of the time, we're chasing other things, really. We're actually chasing probably to be more confident in yourselves. And weight can play a part in it. I'm not saying, like, I think me, Emilia, Anna, and Charlotte as well, Charlotte Fisher, who I spend a lot of time talking to, used to work in nutrition as well. And it's very difficult to sit in that unsexy middle ground, where people want to either potentially diet, or they're anti-diet, or the team track your calories, when actually I think there's a happy middle ground in the middle, where we can take some of the anti-diet movement values, where it's all about acceptance of all bodies and not just skinny ones, which I don't think the anti-diet does very well. I think it's very negative towards people of a normal body shape or potentially slimmer body shape.
Mm.
But some of the things that they're pursuing in the Hayes movement and the health at every size movement are very valuable for a lot of people. That sort of being content with it, who you are, and chasing and realizing your capabilities, your intelligence, your body shape have nothing to do with the person that you actually are and what people value you for. Another task that I think I spoke about at the COVID weekend is if you were to write down the list of like 2 or 3 people who you value most and the things you value about them the most, none of them would, their weight wouldn't come close to the top of the list. And the same would go for people about you as well. So realizing that you place so much value potentially on your weight, actually people don't really care. Like, and a lot of the time people will be shocked that their partners don't really care what they weigh either. They care about them as a person.
Yeah.
And we tell all these stories in our heads that they won't like me unless I'm at this weight. Well, do you know that? Well, potentially, if you're leading the lifestyle you want to live and doing the things that you want to do, and you're at a certain weight and the person you're with doesn't appreciate that, then potentially you're not right with the right person. As bad as that sounds, I'm not here to give relationship advice, but these are the questions that we should be asking. These are the things that we should be reflecting on. Like, if I'm dealing with things that make me truly happy within myself, and people aren't on board with that, that's perfectly fine. But potentially they won't feature in my life as much because I've got to make sure I'm happiest at first, and therefore I can give the best version of myself to other people, rather than worrying about what other people think so much, or their opinions of me, which potentially aren't even true, but I'm making up in my head. Then if you try and please everyone, then you end up pleasing no one.
Yeah, a lot of head nodding moments there for sure. I think one thing I liked about what you said there was like that middle ground isn't sexy, and that's actually a phrase that my wife uses a lot with her clients, which is one of her missions is just to make maintenance sexy. Because it's really not. It's like one of those parts of the industry that no one really talks about. It's just kind of like, well, I turn up to work with a coach, and it's that almost that like, let's get you like, you know, super lean, or let's like get you to lose a ton of weight. That gets so glorified and put up here. But I think you also mentioned this in one of your posts. We talk a lot about this with our clients. Well, if you've not got a good set of maintenance habits to kind of bounce off of, you might not have earned the right to actually go into a fat loss phase yet, because you need to have at least enough of a foundation to build on. Like it's the old house analogy everyone knows. You wouldn't build a house on crap foundations. And so you got to put at least the basic enough of foundations in place first before you then go pursuing something that's actually quite, it's not just stressful physically, but it's actually quite it's going to really challenge you mentally as to what your values are, what your beliefs are. And I think, like you said as well, often people are not ready to have those both like actual physical and kind of philosophical looks in the mirror of like, right, well, am I actually doing this for the right reasons? Is this actually what I really need right now? And so, yeah, I think that those points that you mentioned just completely highlight such an important part of the coaching process.
Yeah, and like you said, like it's about having those solid foundations, and it's almost dieting from a position of strength. That I'd like to say to my clients that potentially, instead of masking potential insecurities that they have themselves, and they hold all this hope and their dreams and all their wants on this certain weight or physique, actually, if we can get people to love the person that they are, live a lifestyle that they want, but they still want to diet, or potentially like I am at the moment, this is probably one of the first times in a long time that probably ever, that I've dieted from a position of strength, that I've got a really good relationship with food. I'm pursuing weight loss for performance benefits, if anything, because I've just started running more. So it's seen as it's going to help me in that aspect. But actually, I've got such more empathetic and balanced approach to it that it's not the be all end all, that I'm not sacrificing everything to lose weight, that I do have days where I'm happy and understanding my appetite and things like that, and understanding that's okay. So I know on a long run day, I'll burn a phenomenal amount of calories, and I probably won't be that hungry, so I can actually have a really big deficit that day. That's perfectly fine. But the day after, usually I'm really hungry, so actually I'm going to have potentially a slight surplus or be at maintenance that day. And understanding those things, and instead of monitoring my weight daily at the moment, but understanding like, oh, that's interesting, and not having a massive judgment on it, and go, oh, okay, if it's not moving down the next few days, then potentially I need to watch my deficit a bit more, and having that non-judgmental approach to myself. From before, it would have been, oh, it hasn't gone down, why hasn't it gone down, Louis? and having those internal battle conversations. And that would have been 2, 3, 4 years ago. So I think, like you said, building those solid foundations of it stops those horrendous jerks with emotions and those potential emotional eating episodes massively. And when you take those away, actually dieting is so much more effective, because you can build that open and honest relationship with yourself and going, oh, okay, so I haven't actually lost a huge amount this week, or I've maintained this week, but actually I've had a really good week socially and I've really enjoyed my food this week. And I'm totally content with that, and understanding that you've made that decision, you made peace with it, rather than berating yourself further down the line, going, well, you said you'd lose weight this week, Louis, and you haven't. Well, why hasn't that happened? And then that jumps to other conclusions and other things that are totally, and I think the common thing that people always go down to is, I'm a bad person because of this. They'll always end up, but you haven't lost weight this week, you're not very good at dieting, oh, you're never going to lose weight, you're a bad person, or you emotionally ate. People don't do that. You're hiding your feelings in there, you're a bad person. That's never the case. Humans in general, they're perfectly imperfect. We're all like this. We all have these days where potentially up, potentially down, and that's just the way it is. Once you accept your common humanity, which is one of the key aspects of self-compassion, along with mindfulness and self-love, then you can really, really diet from a position of strength, and your results become better. You potentially question your whys a lot more, going, well, why am I dieting? Do I really want to diet? Do I need to diet? Where's this pressure coming from? And again, I think it all comes back to just awareness, of raising your awareness around the things that you do and being curious, non-judgmental in all aspects. And I think as coaches, I spoke about this before, that your coach and you should be able to have a relationship where you can be open and honest and there's no judgment there. And I think that's really important with coaches, because a friend of mine messaged me about one of his friends the other day who had a binge eating episode, and he just started dieting. He's a physique guy, and I was a bit like, as he spoke to his coach about it, he's like, I don't think his coach will listen. I was like, well, then obviously you shouldn't be with his coach then. Exactly. And that's the fact of it. Like, and he probably shouldn't be a coach if he can't deal with those conversations, especially dealing with physique athletes, where it's quite prevalent for these things to happen. And for him, if you don't speak to your coach about it, it's not going to get resolved. You can't resolve it. Further restrictions are not going to work. It's just going to make it worse. So you need to be able to have these conversations if you have got a coach, with your coach. So again, Ross is a really good guy. So I know that he cares about his clients, and I think that's really, really important to do. Again, like going back to the foundations of coaching, make sure your coach actually cares about you as a person and not willing to. I know a lot of physique coaches out there who aren't very good. They get people lean, but they don't care about their clients' well-being. They don't care about. Yeah, exactly. And I think I've always had that internal battle about people. If I ever had somebody that wanted to compete, I'd probably be upfront and honest with them. It's like, as somebody who cares and more compassionate, if they get on stage and they don't win, then, and they really wanted to win, then it's like, maybe if I didn't care as much, they'd be leaner. And that's an internal conversation I've had myself, and therefore I probably wouldn't want to get involved with physique athletes, because I'm not a win at all cost person, and that's just my personal thing. And again, that comes down to coaches. I'm probably not the best person to get on stage with at the moment. I probably wouldn't say that. I'm probably the best coach to take you physique. If you're looking to get absolutely shredded at any cost necessary, I'm not the person to take you on. That's not what I'm about. I'm about getting you in the healthiest, happiest place possible.
Yeah, I think that comes down to knowing your values as a coach as well. Like, you know yourself, you know your values and your belief systems. And it's funny because when I think about what my aspirations are, I never thought, with having my background, was always so performance driven. This is the first time I'm doing something that's aesthetics driven. And I think actually that set me up quite well, because I'm not always just looking at, am I leaner this week? Has the scale went down? I'm so fascinated with the performance improvements, even while going through a fat loss phase. So I'm super fascinated by the logbook and how my performance is week to week. I've been on a fat loss phase, a tidy up phase with Cal these past, I think it's been 4 weeks now, 5 weeks actually. The first week, I think I lost 1.5 kilos. It just went woof. I've stayed at the exact same average weight, give or take, for the last 4 weeks. And rather than getting like, oh, what's going on, everything else, and understanding all the factors involved, I looked at it, I was like, well, I'm sleeping so much better. My energy's so much better. My home workouts have actually started to accelerate. A lot of the little niggles I had, they're gone. And so, like you say, rather than just looking at, well, why is that one metric not moving? It's like, well, I know I'm making progress because I can see all of these other areas improving, which ultimately will feed into the longer term movement that I want to do in the right direction. But almost on another side, Mal, so my wife also works with Cal as well. Like, I've been working for Cal for about 14 months. Mal's been about 3 months now, 4 months. And she initially, when lockdown happened, was like, well, actually, I think I want to go through a bit of a tidy up phase now. And it's funny what you mentioned about paying particular attention to clients' check-ins, because he kind of read between the lines. She didn't explicitly say that I'm actually kind of quite happy with how I look at the moment. But he kind of read between the lines. It was just like, listen, Mal, he's like, you know, work's quite full on. I don't know if this is the right time for you to be doing this. I think actually we should just take our foot off the gas and you focus on those other things, and let's just support you training well. And that just shows like a sign of a good coach. Like, rather than just like, okay, I'm just going to drive this, you know, Instagram post or whatever else. Like, okay, well, my best interest is your best interest at heart. And actually, I'd rather just support you flourishing in all these other areas of your life at the moment. So I think that's, very cool. All those things. So what I wanted to finish with, Lewis, and this is quite interesting, and you have no idea what's coming at you now. So this is the quick fire round.
Okay, bro.
So the quick fire round is random and weird questions. And we'll just see what sort of answers you're going to throw at these. You ready?
Yeah, ready.
Try not to get burned in the process. Right. Biscuits or cakes?
I'm celiac, so this is already thrown at one in the works. Cakes and biscuits are both notoriously bad gluten-free because they've got no bounce to them. The texture's all wrong. But cake.
There we go. I should have remembered the celiac thing, because I do remember you remember this. So that's one Lewis, one Ross now. Favorite ice cream flavor?
Oh, probably be a chocolate peanut butter cup.
Oh, that's a good choice. Sweet or savory?
Sweet.
Ali or Tyson?
Tyson.
Oh, okay. I got asked that question recently and I said the opposite, so interesting. Place you haven't been yet but most want to visit?
Probably New Zealand.
Nice. Lee Halfpenny or Stuart Hogg?
Or Halfpenny.
Good choice. Kick to the corner or shot at goal?
Kick to the corner.
Good.
Bat yourself. You always got to bat yourself.
That's the forward in you that's saying that as well. Nutrition myth that you wish would die?
I think alkaline diets and blood type diets, or dieting for your body shape, any of those ones, just and the people with them, hopefully, just go as well.
Oh my, an absolute cull. There is this COVID thing going around at the moment, but we'll add another thing to the mix. What is the meaning of life?
To enjoy it while you're here.
Nice. No hesitation there either. Last question. Who should we have next on the podcast?
I think 3 names that popped to my head immediately. Well, there's quite a few, but the top 3 would probably be Tim Reed. I know you're getting Johnny Landell on here because Johnny's a top bloke as well, but also Charlotte Fisher as well. Charlotte Fisher's good. Yeah,
I need to reach out to Charlotte for sure. Awesome. So, listeners, thanks so much for you giving us a lot of your time today already. I'm sure the listeners will take a hell of a lot from that, because it isn't just the usual calorie deficit rhetoric that we see week in, week out, day in, day out on social media. It's good to dive into a topic that is, I feel, still not discussed anywhere near enough. So thank you very much for coming on and sharing your insights with us. And I just want to commend you as an individual for how much time and care and attention you put into that aspect of your clients' coaching as well.
I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. Like, I really enjoy doing podcasts, as you can probably tell with my ramblings today. But yeah, like, I knew as soon as we had those conversations at CoFit, I was like, me and Ross are going to get on and have a lot of shared values in regards to coaching. But yeah, like, hopefully people need anything from me, just give me a shout on social media. I'm always on there at the moment with Instagram. It's louisp.nutrition for Instagram. And yeah, if you need anything at all, but I always try and finish on one note on podcasts. If people have heard me on podcasts before, they'll probably hear this again for another time. But if people could do one thing each day, it would probably be kind. If they could take one thing away from this podcast, it's be kind to others and be kind to yourself as well.
Awesome, brilliant. So listen, guys, we will put Louis' Instagram handle in the show notes, as well as we'll also link an application if you're interested in working with Louis, you resonate with Louis and how he operates and how he works. We'll put a link to the coaching application in the show notes as well. As far as supporting Better Body Radio, and as we build momentum and we get more fantastic guests on, the best way you could support us is to get on Apple, leave us a 5-star review, leave us a comment if you feel like there was a particular point that resonated with you. And once again, Louis, thanks so much. We'll hope to have you back on in the future.
Thanks for having me, guys. Thanks for listening.